Welcome everybody to Parent with Purpose. We are back today and we are kind of going down a path of exploring people's lives that have been through a lot of abuse, different abuse, sexual abuse, mental abuse, verbal abuse. A while back I did a story with my daughter about how she got into human trafficking, which kind of started opening the door for a lot of different things. And I have had the pleasure of meeting so many different people who have something in their lives that have been created because of things in their childhood that should have been fixed, that wasn't fixed, either because of bad parenting or because of circumstances. But our job here today is not to judge who and what did what to these people, but how can we move forward and make this better so this doesn't, the cycle can get broken and so that healing can really happen, not only for people who've been through things, but for the parents who may have caused some of those things. And I'm not sure we can fix it all, and that's not our goal, is to fix it all. We can only fix ourselves. And so today our job here is to try to help you as parents and as adults in children's lives be the catalyst, be the person that they can go to that might be able to help fix it. Really? So we're going to be talking to Kat today a little bit about her story and what, if there had been the right questions or the right circumstances in her life that could have made her life better. That's what we need to hear. That's what we need to know. So welcome. Thank you for being here.
And thank you for having me.
For sharing whatever part of the story you want to share, because it's a big story for your life. Yeah. I sat down earlier today when we were talking, and my heart broke for all of you. But when I hear all of the pieces in your lives, as adults, mature adults, our hearts should break when we hear stories like this. And if they don't, there's something wrong with us.
Most definitely.
So we're going to be talking and reaching, hopefully, those people. But those people are the ones that also can make the change.
Yeah.
So the people that have had lives, that have had so much happen to them, and were broken and are now better, are also the people that can help. So we're here today as one and the other, trying to do our part to make it so that our kids in our society have a better life. So tell me whatever you want to about your story, and start telling me what would have helped you have a better ending quicker.
Right. Okay, I'll give it just in a nutshell. So sexual abuse started for me at 2 years old. I was exposed to pornography very young. So I would have to act out the things on the pornography. Guys would say things like, you should be happy I picked you, you're prettier than the rest, or you're going to know how to take care of your boyfriend when you're older, which kind of led me to believe this is what men thought, and this is how men treated women, and this is what was expected of me, which led me into a slew of abusive relationships, sexually, physically, emotionally, mentally, which eventually led me into prostitution and being human trafficked. That's just in a nutshell. So for me, I feel that, there's telltale signs that something's happening to our children. The trauma didn't start showing until the other men started to abuse me. Then I started to wet the bed. Then I started having nightmares, acting up in school, just became this rebellious, angry little girl. And I think that, the people around me who were seeing this, the church, my school, my mother, whoever, never asked me the questions. What happened? What's going on? Why are you so angry? How did you go from being student of the week in public school to now beating people up in class? Why are you wetting the bed? Where are you having these nightmares from? Why was I pulling out my own hair as a little girl, or smashing my head off the wall? Or nobody asked. Nobody, not one person said, Kat, what's going on? Why are you behaving like this? And I think that these are the questions that need to be asked. If you see a child struggling, what's going on? There's no bad kid. It's created. It's trauma. It's something that's going on to a child to cause them to react a certain way. And we react with the only thing that we know how to. We don't know how to speak. We don't know how to properly express that to you, or to go tell somebody we need help. So it's going to come out through ways that look very destructive, right? So I think if somebody would have asked me that question, what's happening?
for what's happening.
Yeah.
And let's say that they actually did ask us those questions.
Yeah.
What would have happened to you and what would have changed in your life?
Everything would have changed. I think I would not have fallen prey to being, beaten my whole entire life and believing that I was worth nothing, that it was okay to be beaten and raped and used and abused for a man's pleasure. I never would have sold my body and been a dollar sign. That would have not been me. I would have been different. I became a mom at 15 years old and was such a horrible mother because I didn't know how to love myself. I never learned the proper parenting, so I was a really bad mom. And I took that out on, I ended up with 4 children, and I took that out on all of my kids. So history repeats itself, and we live what we learn, and it would have changed that course. Because what happened to me, things happened to my children, and because of my lack of parenting and the way that I treated them, they had their own trauma. So it's just this continuation of things. So I think my life would have changed. I always wanted to be a cop. I wanted to be a police officer. I would have been different than who I am today. And I think I would have had a chance in the sense of I wouldn't have had to experience all that trauma to where, now everything in life is a damn trigger, or I have to, constantly just see, smell, hear, touch, and then be brought back to certain places. Because no matter how much we get help, it's always just waiting back there for us. Just that trigger, and that's the hardest part. So, today am I lucky? Absolutely. I'm able to help other women who've gone through what I've gone through. And maybe I wouldn't have been able to do that if I didn't go through it. But would I rather not go through it? Absolutely.
So you've broken the cycle that's happened in your life with your children?
Yes.
So explain to us what you've done and how you've done that.
You know what? It was listening. It was listening and hearing. When I finally was able to get to a place of understanding my trauma and understanding the damage that I was causing my children,
Right.
and having a conversation with them and saying, what have I done to you? And justifying how they felt. I could have said, you know what, yeah, I did that because this happened to me, this happened to me, this happened to me. It didn't matter what happened to me. They were justified in the way that they felt from what I did. And I had to embrace that and listen to it and say sorry, and allow them to talk and allow them to be heard and justify their hurt no matter how much it hurt me. My shame couldn't get in the way anymore. My guilt couldn't get in the way anymore. My excuses couldn't get in the way anymore. That alcohol, the drugs couldn't get in the way anymore. And that's what I did. When my kids would come to me, I go get loaded. I couldn't handle the pain I went through or the pain that I caused them by not being there. So I had to stop. I had to face my demons, take responsibility, get help, and then get my kids help.
So you're talking about this from both sides of the story for you because you've also had kids that you saw. So what was it that actually helped you get to that point? You're extremely strong to have gone through that, have kids, see your kids going through the same thing, and you nailed it. You said it's the shame that was creating the problem for you, but somehow you did it anyway. How did you do that? How did you break that cycle?
It was God. For me, it was. It was God for me that changed my life.
Was it somebody?
It was my daughter. My firstborn daughter that I had at 15 years old became a Christian at 13. And for 10 years she prayed for me. 10 years I would be, prostituting all night, and I would come in loaded, and she would have scriptures pinned on my door saying, Mom, God loves you. And I'd be like, screw God, whatever. How can he love me? How did he let this happen? My father was a Sunday school teacher. So very young, I hated God. Mm-hmm. Here's this God that I believed was Santa Claus and could see and hear everything. Then why the hell was I getting raped? Yeah. So I had this vendetta against him and the fact that he was a man. But my daughter would pray. And she prayed and she prayed and she prayed. And the story was that it was a customer who got me out of the game. And it was 15 years in of, cutting myself and suicide and drugs and overdoses and just being this violent person, to where it was like, I'm going to kill myself or kill somebody else. And he offered me an out, and I took it. But in taking that, I became his private prostitute. And so 3 years of being with him, he controlled everything, money, everything, and then he left me, and I had nothing, and I was going back to prostitution after I'd been in it for 3 years. And I called my daughter, and I told her what was going to happen. And she was devastated, and she had youth leaders who were her mentors, who became like her mother and father, and they were from the church, and they offered me first and last month's rent. And at first I didn't take it because I didn't want anything to do with Jesus people. And I didn't want to be obligated. But then I took the money. And out of that, taking that money, I felt an obligation to go to church. So I started going to church. And then the lady who gave me the money became my mentor. And she wanted to go to Alpha. And I really thought she wanted to go to Alpha, not realizing she'd been in the church for 25 years. So I went with her, and I went on a mission to prove that God was like every other man. So I would ask the hard questions. So I would ask things like, okay, you say I can't have sex before marriage. Can I give a blowjob? And instead of the elders being like, oh my God, they'd be like, well, Katarina, this is what God says. And they just loved me and accepted me. And the 9th week in Alpha, I left on a suicide mission. I was going to commit suicide. I couldn't take anymore. And I just kept hearing this voice in my head for 3 hours that said, just give me a chance, give me a chance. And I broke. And I said, okay, God, if you're real, do your thing. And it didn't change everything.
The lights didn't start blinking, and yes.
It didn't, but it did change the hole that I had in my heart. That hole that I had filled through drugs, through men, through, materialistic thing, through whatever I could, it filled that. And that's what saved me. And I wanted to give back to women. And so my mentors are on my board of directors. They have walked beside me for 8 years.
So talk about your organization, please.
So Rising Angels is an organization that helps women who have been human trafficked or sexually exploited.
Right.
We walk alongside of them, so we mentor them, kind of like their cheerleaders, because we all need it. We offer trauma therapy and trauma-informed care. We also help financially. And we do a lot of advocacy and education to the public and to front lines to train them on the realities and what to look for and how to understand a woman's mindset. We run a church twice a month for women, and we have a parent support group. So it's just, when I talk about this, I get excited because I'm like, yes, I'm doing all this. And it's sad because of where I came from to get here, but those are the types of people we need to be able to walk alongside of these women and to help. You have to, these girls have, this radar. They know, who you are, if you're real, if all of that. So I get the pleasure of being able to, walk beside them and gain their trust. And I think even with kids, if you're thinking about little kids and building that rapport with them, getting them to open up to you, getting them to trust you, if they've been hurt by somebody else, it's going to be very hard to trust another adult. So building that time with them, showing them that you're not going to leave or fail them or hurt them like somebody else did. And that's what we do with the women, is we're there. We get the 2, 3, 4 a.m. screaming crazy calls that they're losing it, and we're just there, because nobody was there for me. There was nothing when I came out.
Right.
There was no programs or organizations to help me, and I wanted to be that organization to help. And now there's a lot of people, even what you're doing now and what's happened with your daughter, and the awareness that you're bringing around this is amazing. So I think if we can all collaborate together, we all have something to bring to the table.
Yes,
we all have different strengths, and if we can collaborate those together, we can make a difference.
We all have to do our part.
Yes, we do.
Absolutely. So Kat has shared a story today, and with her life and everything that's happened, she's had the opportunity to break that cycle. I can't say that everybody I have ever met would have that strength to do that. She's giving a lot of credit to her daughter, to God. That strength may have come from God. It may have come from her daughter, but she had to grab a hold of that and do something with that. We shouldn't have to put our kids in those positions. Children shouldn't have to be put in those positions. Adults shouldn't be having to fix themselves from damaged childhoods. We want to break that cycle. Kat and her organization has a lot of information down below. Please take a look at it. It's for people who are going through something like this, have gone through something like this. Think maybe you know somebody who's going through this, because I know for me the biggest issue I always had as a parent is when I find out stuff, I didn't know what to do with it. And this is such a huge subject that even now, and my daughter went through it, and I'm now talking to so many people, I still sit here and kind of go, what do I do? Like, if I think, what do I do? And so those resources are down below here, and we've also got victim services, and we've also got some police from previous interviews. Please check those all out, because there's lots of resources here on the website, and we're just going to keep putting more and more and more. So I want to thank you, Kat, for your courage to come today and just talk, because I know that takes courage beyond belief. You need a team of people behind you that you know care about you regardless. Absolutely. You seem to have that, and you are that.
Thank you.
For so many other people.
Thank you.
So as always, we want to wish you an awesome day.
Thanks.
Oh my goodness, I feel so blessed to be sitting in this out with you people.